The film begins with a killer named Charles Ray fleeing from a police officer. Several times, the police tries to shoot him. His companion runs after watching all of this. To hide, Charles enters a toy store. The officer shoots him again. Charles realizes he is about to die and falls on the toys nearby. They were good guy. Charles is skilled in black magic, which enables him to transfer a soul to another person. He does his magic by placing his hand inside a doll and transferring his soul into it. As a result, a storm strikes, and the toy shop is struck by lightning, causing it to explode and entirely destroy itself. However, the officer survives the blast, and at the end, the officer finds Charles's dead body. The scene shifts, and we discover a young boy named Andy, who is celebrating his birthday today. He and his mother open the gifts, but he is disappointed because he requires good guy dolls. On the other hand, a friend of Andy's mom informs her that a man is selling a low-wedge good guy doll. Andy's mother goes out and purchases the doll. Andy is overjoyed when his mother presents him with the doll. The doll introduces himself as Chucky. Andy's mother was now obliged to work the night shift. She asks her friend to look after Andy at night when he watches television, and his mother's friend puts him to bed. She switches off the television. The television was turned on after a while, and Chucky sat in front of it. Andy, according to his mother's friend, is responsible for everything. After Andy falls asleep, Chucky attacks Andy's mother's acquaintance with a hammer. As a result, she falls from the window and falls on a car, where she dies. When Andy's mother returns, she observes an ambulance in a large crowd of people. She becomes frightened. She pays a visit to Andy, his son. Andy's mother visits the same officer that killed Charles. However, everyone suspects Andy, and Andy finds the doll's footprints. He informs everyone that his mother's friend has been murdered by Chucky doll. Andy informs his mother that Chucky interacts with him and has revealed his real name, Charles Ray. Andy's mother tries to persuade him that he shouldn't be doing all of this. Andy refuses to go to school the next day when his mother drops him off. He joins Chucky on his journey. All of this was done on Chucky's orders. He takes him to his friend's house, who has left Charles at the time, and where he seeks revenge. When he gets home, he turns on the gas stove. His friend hears a noise from the kitchen. He opens the door and shoots, resulting in an explosion. Andy is once again blamed for the death of Charles's friend. Andy, on the other hand, claims that Chucky is behind everything, but no one believes him. Andy was admitted to a psychiatric hospital and stayed there for a few days. When Andy's mother returns home, she finds Chucky's low battery. For several days, he was operating without a battery. She becomes upset and seeks out Chucky to express something. Chucky remains silent and attacks Andy's mother instead. Later, Andy's mother approaches the police officer and informs him that Andy was speaking the truth. Chucky the toy is alive. He's doing everything by himself. They return to the same man from whom they purchased the doll, and he informs them that he took the doll from a burning shop. After then, the police officer most likely understands and informs Andy's mother that he has killed a killer at this shop named Charles Ray. When the police officer was seated in his car, Chucky strikes another officer who is seated in the same car. The car flips over as a result of his attack, but he shoots Chucky, who is injured and bleeds. Chucky visits his master, from he has learned magic. He claims that he thinks that no one could hurt him now, but he feels pain as a result of the bullet. His owner informs him that he is gradually converting into a human and will continue to do so until he lives in the doll. He informs his master that he couldn't live in that doll's body for the rest of his life, and that he'll have to figure out a method to escape free. His master clearly negates because Chucky becomes an evil man. He also tortures his master there. His master informs him that he must first transfer his soul into the body of someone he has introduced first of. That was Andy. After stabbing his master, he leaves. Andy's mother later arrives and inquires about Chucky with the master. Mater tells Andy's mother everything, including the fact that the only way to kill Chucky is to stab his heart. Later, Chucky approaches Andy, who becomes afraid, while Andy's doctor arrives. Chucky, on the other hand, uses an electric shock to murder the doctor. Andy runs and returns home, but Chucky pursues and reaches out as well. He knocks him out and begins his black magic, but Andy's mother and a police officer arrive and stop Chucky. Chucky attacks Andy's mother and stabs the officer in the foot with the knife. Andy's mother has Chucky imprisoned in a chimney and has asked Andy to burn fire there. Chucky stops him and says, "We used to be good friends," but Andy burns the flame. Chucky burns but is still alive and attacks them. Andy's mother fires a shot at him, causing his head to separate from his body. Everyone thinks he's dead now, but he attacks him again. But this time, the police officer shoots him in the heart, and Chucky dies, bringing the first part of the film to an end. Now we'll get into the second half of the movie, when we'll learn that 2 years have gone since Chucky's death. His burnt head was left, but the rest of his body was destroyed, which we saw in the first part. His head is reassembled at a toy company. Because, according to Andy and his mother, Chucky was responsible for all of the murders in the previous part. As a result of this, these dolls have received negative publicity, which has impacted their sales. Because the company's CEO must prove that these dolls are error-free. We also know that Andy's mother was committed to a psychiatric hospital and that no one believed Chucky's story. Andy is staying in a hostel as well. The company's owner arrives at the factory where the dolls were made. The technician is thrown at a distance and dies as a result of an electric shock while he tries to adjust his eyes. The Chucky doll is thrown, but it returns to life again after this incident. Chucky doll's goal was to get to Andy as soon as possible. In addition, he needed to transfer his soul into his body. Andy, on the other hand, is shown as someone who hasn't forgotten anything about Chucky. His caretaker gives him to a couple to change his surroundings. When Andy arrives, he is greeted by Kyle, their daughter. That lady sends Andy inside a room, and when Andy unlocks a cupboard door, a good guy doll falls, terrifying Andy. The couple tries to persuade him that this is only a doll. The doll is thrown by the lady. On the other hand, Chucky doll appears to have known Andy's address through contact. When Chucky arrives at Andy's residence, he encounters the good guy toy that the lady has thrown. Chucky breaks the doll and hides it in the garden. He was doing it to take his place. Chucky pays them a visit. Andy examines the doll, and to satisfy his doubts, he checks his battery. He considers this to be a normal doll, and he keeps it with him. Chucky ties Andy's hands and feet while he sleeps. Andy wakes up, and he tells him that he would not leave him this time, and he begins his magic. Kyle enters the room and opens his hands. Andy informs him that Chucky has chased him. They all come to him, but no one believes him when he tells them about Chucky. Now the lady's husband has thrown Chucky into a basement, his nose has begun to bleed. Chucky realizes that his body is transforming back into a human once more. When Andy goes to school the next day, Chucky follows him and destroys his homework. His teacher punishes him by putting him in a room after the class. Andy, on the other hand, flees, and when his teacher arrives to check on him, Chucky murders her. Andy informs the lady and her husband, who brought him home, that Chucky has followed him once more. But no one believes him, and Andy realizes that he must kill Chucky himself. He gets to the basement by taking the knife where Chucky was imprisoned. Chucky, on the other hand, attacks Andy brutally. As to hear this, the lady's husband reaches out as well. Chucky throws him down the stairwell, and he dies as a result. Lady also appears and blames Andy for being responsible for her husband's death. Andy is asked to leave by her. Andy was later returned to the hostel. Kyle must stay away from Chucky, he warns. Kyle swings later, and her foot becomes entangled with the foot of that old doll. She lifts her foot out and realizes Andy was correct. When she walks upstairs to inform her mother Chucky has already killed her mother later, he attacks Kyle and asks her to come with him to Andy's hostel. Kyle attempts to kill him on the way, but he is unharmed. He reaches out to Kyle and forces her to drive him to the hostel. As soon as he gets there, he starts ringing alarms. The hostel warden scolds Kyle, and Chucky assaults and murders her. He drags Andy behind him and drives into a paper truck. Kyle pursues the truck and passes it. Chucky, on the other hand, takes Andy to a toy company that makes dolls. Kyle also arrives, but she is unable to locate Andy and Chucky. Chucky knocks him out and begins his magic. There was no one around to distract him this time. Andy's eyes immediately open. Chucky was still stuck inside that doll's body, and his magic remained ineffective. Chucky now recognizes that he will spend the rest of his life in this doll's body. Kyle arrives as well and chases after Andy. They come across a hallway. Chucky joins them, but they seal the door. Chucky's hand got stuck in the door, so he pulled his hand away from his body. He secures the knife in his grip. A worker is assigned to the location to fix a machine. Chucky stabs him with a knife and then puts him in a machine to kill him. Kyle and Andy, on the other hand, are trying to kill Chucky. Andy places him in a tub and sets a plastic melting valve on him. Chucky's body melts down. Kyle places a gas pipe in Chucky's mouth as his body melts. Chucky dies as a result of his mouth filling up and erupting. Andy and Kyle are freed from the factory. The second part of the film comes to a close here. This is where the third act of the film will be explained. The Good Guy Doll Manufacturing Company is revealed to be sealed at the beginning of the film. The reason for the company's closure is that we've seen Chucky commit all of the killings in parts 1 and 2. The company has received unfavorable publicity as a result of these murders. The company has now reopened, and the doll manufacturing process has resumed. The same factory where Chucky's head was blown is presented to us. The factory was being cleaned, and Chucky's body was visible to be bleeding. His blood was put into the doll's manufacturing plastic. Chucky is revealed to come to life as a result of this mixture. The company's owner tries to persuade the employees that the tale of Andy and the killer doll is no longer relevant. These dolls will provide us with numerous advantages. The first doll, a Chucky doll, is produced and given to the company's owner. It is revealed to us that this is no one else but Chucky doll. He takes the doll home with him. Chucky doll turns on the other dolls at night. Chucky kills him because he is terrified. Andy, who is 16 years old and has been admitted into a military school. Chucky's terrifying experiences are still fresh in his mind. His colonial urges him to forget about the past and focus on the future. Andy arrives for his haircut and is greeted by Tyler, a boy he met at school. Andy sees a television commercial for the Good Guy doll while getting his hair trimmed. Tyler reacts in the same way Andy did as a child. The scene shifts to Andy at the school assembly, where he is bullied by a boy because he is new. De Silva, a young lady, comes to the rescue. Tyler had given Andy a box to deliver, but it had been dropped by Tyler on the way. Tyler realizes there's a Good Guy doll inside, and he's overjoyed. He takes the package into another room, and a doll appears out of the box. Tyler doesn't scare and considers the doll to be advanced. Chucky inquires about Andy. Chucky suddenly realizes that he is in a new body and hasn't told anyone his identity. He could, according to the rule, possess the body of someone he presents first. Andy is no longer required. Charles Ray is his real name, he tells him. Chunky invites him to play a game called Hide and Soul with him. He begins his spell on Tyler. As he begins, his magical colonial appears. He prevents him from playing with a doll, which he tosses into a basket. He later enters Andy's room and informs him of the package that was provided to Tyler. Andy denies ever receiving a parcel. Later on, Andy begins to gather his belongings, and Chucky appears and scares him with a knife. Andy is frightened by his knife, and Andy is frightened a lot. Andy uses his shoe to strike Chucky. Later, the same boy who bullied Andy returns to bully him and steal his doll. Andy enters his room at night and discovers Chucky doll, whom he intends to murder. But Chucky flees and meets Tyler, who joins him in a game of hide and seek. Before Tyler is possessed by Chucky, both meet his friend and De Silva come. When the Colonial arrives, they flee in terror, leaving Chucky behind. Colonial is approached by Chucky, who appears a knife. While seeing this, Colonial had a heart attack and passes away. Andy, on the other hand, pursues Tyler in order to keep him away from Chucky, who is a serial killer. Andy's school started an annual war game in which red and blue teams competed. They could use their bullets, which were artificial bullets rather than true bullets in their pistol. Chucky, on the other side, approaches Tyler to ask him to play the game. Tyler understands Chucky is a serial killer, so he staggers him and flees. Tyler makes contact with the blue team Andy. Chucky kidnaps De Silva and asks Tyler's blue team via walkie-talkie to come. Andy and Tyler arrive at the place, led by Chucky. Tyler flees when Andy delivers him to Chucky. Tyler gets to a playland by running. By reaching there, he tells the security. Andy and De Silva also pursue him in the security room. De Silva snatches Chucky's gun when they see Chucky has already killed an officer. Tyler is kidnapped by Chucky and forced to ride with him at gunpoint. Andy and De Silva arrive as well, and Chucky fires a shot. De Silva's hand is struck by a bullet. Andy is given the gun, and she asks him to save Tyler. Chucky's face was badly damaged as he was holding Tyler. Tyler collapses after saving him and passes out. Chucky appears and begins to work his magic. Andy fires his hand, but he can't seem to quit working his magic. Andy shoots his heart, but he is still alive. Chucky tries to suffocate Andy by pushing his hand against his throat. Andy grabs him and pulls him into a fan. He decomposes and dies a second time. De Silva was brought to the hospital after Andy was arrested by the police. The film ends here.